I could just go back and have waited. Just wait another day or two, see what happens. I mean, I can't honestly say now that I felt that they were actually going to do something in that moment, because now I know that they didn't have any weapons with them. Not that I knew for sure how it was going to go down anyway.
Well, everyone knows now that you overreacted.
Well, I obviously overreacted at that moment. No doubt about it. I fucked up. But whether something was going to happen that night, I mean, I felt like it was pointing to that night. But I don't know. You know, obviously it wasn't pointing to that moment. And I'm not going to go into court and say that it was. You know, I mean, I told my attorneys, I said, listen, I don't fucking believe now that they were going to kill me at that moment, and I'm not going to go in there and say I believe that now. Because I just don't.
Well, you're saying you were afraid.
Yeah. You know, and they have a letter. This is a scandalous thing. Their two theories are that it was for money, and it was a perfect murder, and also that I hated my parents. But their main theory is money. They took a letter from me that I wrote to my brother that they confiscated out of his cell, that they thought we were trying to escape once, so they just bagged up everything in my brother's cell while he was at court. And in there was a 17-page letter that I had written him, all about what happened. And basically, it was not all about just what happened. It was mostly about the fact that he wanted to move to another area of the jail, and I wanted to go with him, and how important it is that we stay close brothers. And so this long letter, and in it I say that only he and I know our family's secrets, right? Only he and I know what happened, and that I don't know what I can do about what happened. As far as I can see, I made a mistake, right? And that I don't know what to do about it. I guess I can't do anything about it now, right? That's what I say in the letter. And before that, I say, don't worry about the press, because you and I know that we didn't do anything for the money. And this is all written in the letter. And they used this letter at the grand jury to get me indicted for murder, because it was at that time basically the only piece of evidence that they had connected me to proving that I was involved. And they used that at the grand jury, right? And because they used it at the grand jury told them, well, we reject your claim that they did it for money, and they reject the financial gain circumstance, because the fucking letter says it wasn't for money. You can't have your cake and eat it too. And they argue that when I said I made a mistake, that what I was saying was that I planned the perfect murder, and because I got caught, that was the mistake. And I was like, yeah, right. So anyway, they realized, I got on the stand during the motion for the letter, and they started cross-examining me on it, and I got emotional, I cried, and they said, oh fuck, we better not use this letter, because we don't want the kid to cry. So they told the judge, 1 week before the trial, we've decided we're not using the letter in our case. The main reason they weren't going to use it, one, is because they realize I'll get emotional. Two, is they realize that it says right in the letter it's not for the money. And now that I'm indicted, and they've got Ozil, and they realize that I'm going to admit to the killing, they don't need to prove I was involved, and this letter is just going to hurt their case. So they said, we're not using the letter. Scandalous. I told my attorney, I said, how can they go ahead and say it's for the money when they got a letter that proves it's not? And they used it in the grand jury to get me indicted. They go, well, that's the law. They don't have to use what they used in one grand jury in the trial. And I said, well, why don't we use it? They said, well, you can't use a letter you wrote. That's the law. I said, well, there's got to be a way to get this fucking letter in, right? She said, yeah, we'll get it in through the experts. When the psychologists come in and testify that they believe you, and then we ask them what is the basis for that belief, they can mention one of the things is this letter that the jail authorities confiscated. And they said, we'll get it in that way, and don't worry about it. The jury will see that.
Well, no use worrying.
But, you know, thank God I wrote the fucking... and this is the best thing. At the end of the letter, I write to my brother, please destroy this. You know what I mean? Like he hasn't gotten me in enough trouble already going to Ozil. I write, please destroy this. This is before we had even gotten a decision on whether the psychologist could testify. So you can imagine my state of mind when I heard they had this letter. Please destroy this. And I go, Eric, why didn't you destroy it? Well, you know, it was such a nice letter. I wanted to show it to my attorney, so I hold on to it, and then I forgot about it. I'm like, oh my God. And of course they can't use it against my brother. They would just use it against me. In any case, so they bring Perry in yesterday, and Perry gets on the stand. They only had a couple questions about the alibi. Then my attorney got on the stand, and oh my God, Perry's been on the front page of the paper all day for his comments.
So how did he look?
He looked great. Suit, looked good. He got up there. First he argued to the judge that the judge shouldn't allow him to be on TV, and the judge told him to fuck off, he's going to be on TV. So he gets up there. Man, he reamed the DA. My way he was doing it, gave him dirty looks, yelled at him, my brother started crying. Right? And the DA was like, oh my God. And the jurors were looking at Perry like, man. And Perry said, it was the most traumatic experience he's had as a coach in like the whole 15 years. And then my parents started talking about, the DA brought out the fact, well, they invited you over for family dinners and stuff, right? Trying to make it seem like they were real nice and it was this nice, happy family. And he said, yeah, I came over for dinner a couple times. And they left it at that. And my attorney asked, well, what was it like at these family dinners? He said it was so tense. I hated being there. They were like, oh my God. And then he started telling some, then the DA made a mistake and allowed him to talk about my girlfriend Christy, the model, allowed him, Perry, to say something that Christy had told him, which was that my dad had ordered me to terminate my relationship with Christy because he thought Christy was a gold digger, and I complied, which really was good for us. And it will help the theory because one of the reasons I was taken out of the world is my dad was concerned that I had all these gold digger girlfriends. And he thought it would stop if he took me out and I knew about it. So they ended up building up our case on the gold digger thing. Perry made the statement that's been on the front page of every paper out here that my dad, Mr. Menéndez, ran his family like a company and he was chairman of the board. And so that's been on the front page everywhere. And then the other thing Perry said was that when I called him that evening, I was real anxious and jumpy when I called him to meet me after my parents had died.
Really? I can't imagine why.
Yeah, what my attorney said, well, was there anything different about his voice when he left you the message in the morning? No. Was there anything different about his voice when he called you at 4 to make the plans? No. And what about when he called you at 11:30? Yeah, he was anxious and jumpy, right? And she's going to try and show that, obviously, this thing must have erupted sometime between the 4 o'clock call and when that happened, or I wouldn't have had such a change in my demeanor. So then Perry got off the stand, and the DAs were just like, oh my God. So the papers have been and then the next lady that was supposed to be a witness was the Rolex lady, and they ran out of time. So Perry was the last witness, and there was no court today, so they got 3 days of just dwelling on Perry. So, it was good. It was good. So we've had 3 good days between the opening statements, the boat guy, and Perry.